Okay, good evening, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us tonight for this meeting of the the Planning Applications Committee. We've got a number of items tonight. Before we start, I'm going to just do a bit of housekeeping first of all. So starting with the evacuation procedure. A fire drill is not expected, so if the alarm sounds, please evacuate the building quickly and calmly. Please use the stairs and do not use the lifts. Once out of the building, please gather outside the Virgin Money building, which was formerly the Yorkshire Bank, on the opposite side of the road. Exit by the door which you entered the room or by the fire exits which are clearly indicated by the standard green fire exit signs. If you need assistance in evacuating the buildings, please make yourself known to a member of staff. Please make sure all mobile phones are now turned off or set to silent. We are recording this meeting, so it will be sort of going out live, and it will also be sort of streamed online over the next 24 hours. Apologies, I've received 2 apologies tonight from Councillor Wilson and Councillor Croft, and would like to welcome Councillor Walsh and Councillor Brown, who are substituting for them tonight. So welcome, councillors. Okay, moving to the minutes. Do I have somebody to propose that the minutes from last week are accurate? So thank you, Councillor Evans. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Smith. All those in favour? Minutes being an accurate record. Thank you. That's unanimous. I'll sign those off now. Okay, moving on then. Are there any declarations of interest from any of the councillors? No, that's no declarations of interest other than the ones already shown. And do I have any declarations of contact? Okay, so Councillor Evans.
140 Woodlands Road. Upon taking legal advice on this application, I will be leaving the room. Before I was a member of this committee, I brought this application to the committee, and I have said that I am against the application, so I will be leaving the room at the time. Thank you.
Are there any other councillors? No, it's okay. In that case, we'll move to item 1 on tonight's agenda. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you. So item number 1 is a full application for the erection of a single-storey garage to the side and rear of 212A Arbury Road. The plot features a large front garden and drive with additional land to the side and rear. The land to the side was originally an access road to the school to the south. However, the applicant and Warwickshire County Council have since confirmed that the applicant owns this land. The detached property features red brick with a hipped roof and a gable roof above a 2-storey front projection. The house itself is far set back from Arbury Road by approximately 20 metres. The proposed garage is to be attached to the south-east corner of the property, meaning that it will be set back from the footpath by approximately 25 metres. A petition has been received in opposition to this proposal, with concerns raised in regards to ownership, impact on light, overlooking, design and noise. And the key issues to be considered within this application are the impacts on residential and visual amenity and the impact on highway safety. 212 Arbury Road is a neighbouring property to the east, and this property features side-facing windows at the ground and first floor. However, as this property is significantly set forward, these windows would not be opposite the proposed garage, and therefore it is considered that the development would have very little impact on light and amenity to these windows. Number 212 does feature rear-facing windows. However, the distance standard between these windows and the proposal are met and exceeded. The garage is to be set back from the boundary by a metre, and this should help to reduce the impact to number 212's rear garden to an acceptable level. 214 Arbury Road is the neighbouring property to the west. As the proposed garage is to be on the opposite side of this property, it is considered that it would have very little impact, and the proposal is compliant with the distance standards. The garage would feature side-facing windows which face towards number 214. However, as they are at the ground floor level and 12 metres from the boundary, it is considered that they would have little impact on privacy. It is considered that the development had very little impact to the Nuneaton Academy School to the south, as the distance standards are exceeded, and there is no risk of overlooking as the garage is single storey. The garage is to be far set back from the principal elevation, and therefore it would not appear incongruous within the street scene. The garage roof is in keeping with the forward-facing gable and cat-slide roof displayed on the existing dwelling, and the scale of the proposal is proportionate to the original house. All external materials are to match the existing, and this will be ensured via a condition. In regards to highway safety, the development would have very little impact as it is to be far set back, and the dwelling would still feature ample parking. In conclusion, the development is compliant with the distance standards set within the SDC. There is little risk of overlooking as the proposal is for a single-storey building, and the development is visually in keeping with the original property and the surrounding area. A condition has been suggested to ensure that the use of the garage is to remain ancillary to the main dwelling, and the final recommendation is one of approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Rebecca. I now acknowledge that we have two members of the public who would like to speak on this matter. So I'll invite the first one, which is Mr. Sanders, to speak. So, Mr. Sanders, as it been explained, you have 3 minutes in which to state your case. Okay, so whenever you are ready.
This evening. Yeah, I was a little bit shocked when I seen the petition come up, but you know, the reason I would really would like this garage is because I do own a nice classic car, and I have very expensive tools as well, which would be better for keeping them closer to the house, and I believe it would be, you know, in keeping with the property. There was a question mark whether I own the property. I know the gentleman at 212 didn't believe that I own the property, and but obviously that's not the case, you know. And I've already spoken to Highways about opening the opposite side up for access, but they said as I've already got an access on the other side by the shop, then they're not prepared to do that at present. So, but yeah, I you know, since being there, bought the property on the 25th of February. We've, you know, I had to get a JCB in, and it's coming, you know, it's turning around now, and it's really it's becoming a nice home, and I want to, and that's all I want is a nice home, and you know, I don't want to be making trouble with the neighbours. You know, I just want to simple life really. So yeah, thank you for letting me speak, and yeah, I think Rebecca said everything in there, you know, and there's not really much I can say to that. So yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
And I believe we also have, in support of your application, we've got Mr. Nightingale who'd like to speak as well. Thank you.
Thank you for hearing me tonight. I've just come in support of Carl, Mr. Sanders, really. I've known Carl about 4 years, and to be honest, he's fairly an honest gentleman. If he says he's going to do what he plans to do, then he will do it, and he will do it within the guidelines that you've given him. I can't, I'm now in the area, I've been living in the area for about 6 years now. Now in the area, I can't see the garage having any impact on the area. In fact, I think it will enhance the property, because at the moment the side of the property is just open. And basically, he will do what he said he's going to do. And I can't see it being a problem. The access is there. I've used the access a couple of times. I visited Carl. It will work. And I can't see it being an issue for the neighbour. I've looked at where the garage is going to go, and it doesn't block the side lights at all. If it did, I would say it did. So I can't see it being a problem, sir. Thank you.
The recommendation before us then is to recommend to grant planning permission subject to conditions as printed. Do I have somebody who'd like to move the proposal? So Councillor Smith seconded, Councillor Rudkin. Thank you. So I'll open the floor now to the debate. So do I have any speakers? Councillor Evans, thank you.
I'm just looking at some of the objections that have, I presume, have been submitted as part of the petition to this application. And the first one is the school owns the land. Well, land ownership in terms of planning, that's a civil matter. So in theory, I could submit a planning application on there myself to build a skyscraper, and we would have to consider it. You know, in the case of the town hall, we've even had someone submit a planning application to convert it into a school, believe it or not. So a very peculiar application, I know. In terms of the concerns about is it in keep with the road, I do sympathise with that view. Arbury Road is a traditional Victorian terraced street, and is it in keep? No, but then again, the property itself is not in keep. That said, having looked at the Sustainable Design and Construction SPD that we've adopted, it is my view that this application meets all of the policies within that. And as the National Planning Policy Framework states, we as a planning committee have to give great weight and emphasis to adopted SPDs when determining planning applications. So my view is that this is a well-presented application and probably should get our approval.
Any other councillors who wish to speak on this matter? Okay, so I'll take you, Councillor Conticore and Councillor Walsh. Thank you.
See, if people have got a garage, that's fine. What we don't want to do is for it to be used for commercial purposes, and you've already got a condition about that, about it being used ancillary, but it might be useful having a condition about sort of no works and no noisy works sort of before 7 or after 7 or 9 in the evening or something. Just I don't know if you're a massive car enthusiast, but it is hopefully a reasonable condition just to put something in that it's not a big workshop that's used in unsociable hours. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Walsh.
Councillor Condicore's, obviously the size of the garage is abnormal in compared to obviously a normal size of garage, but you did say you have classic cars, so the work in there would be purely on your own vehicles, not commercial, as Councillor Condicore asked questions about, and likewise obviously the noise out of hours will be a concern.
Wish to speak on this item? No. So, Ashley, do you have anything to say about that condition?
Thank you, Chair. So, in my opinion, obviously it's up to the committee. The conditions referenced there would not be reasonable on the basis that we don't insert those conditions on every sort of residential dwelling. So, in my opinion, that would be unreasonable. And ultimately, noise is covered under environmental health legislation as well. In terms of the commercial element, that would, if it was being used for commercial purposes, obviously that would then change the use class. So if we were notified of that, irrespective of condition, we would take enforcement action anyway. So in my opinion, we don't require that condition in this instance.
Okay. Any further speakers on this matter? No. Okay. In that case, I will move to vote. I do agree with what Ash has said. I think that is an unreasonable condition to put in because it does go against what other householders would have to put up with. It says there is other legislation to deal with that. So I think it does fall slightly outside of our remit. I know where you're going with it, but I think it does fall outside the remit of this planning committee to do that. I say other legislation will deal with that if it were to become a problem. Can I therefore move to a vote? All those in favour of the recommendation? Okay, so that is unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. That concludes item 1. You are free to leave unless you really wish to stay for the rest of the meeting. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll just have a brief pause while we clean down the chair for our next presenter. So please, may I beg your indulgence for a minute. Okay, so if you'd like to look at item number 2 on your agenda on page 26, before we start, we've been asked for a deferment until the next meeting on this side, and I'll just hand over to Ashley to explain the circumstances behind that.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so with respect to this item, the applicant has requested that we defer to the next committee. You'll note within the papers that there's a Section 106 agreement referenced. Now, they want to take that to board before they can confirm that they'll sign that. So obviously that's material. And therefore, they've requested we defer it to the next committee. You'll also now note that there's outstanding consultation. Now, with that brought in, I think, material back, we'd have to bring it back anyway. So given those two matters, I would like to request the committee defer the item.
Yeah, Councillor Evans.
Ash, I don't want to put you in an awkward position here, so if you can't answer, please don't, if it's commercially sensitive. But is there a chance that the applicant may appeal this to the inspectorate if we were to agree those 106 contributions? Are they raising concerns about what we've put in there?
No, I don't believe that to be a risk, Councillor. I think it's more that they just need the board approval before they can actually confirm that they'll sign up to the 106. So normally we'd want to be presenting to the committee, being clear that and confident that we and the applicant are going to enter into this 106. In this instance, we can't sort of make that commitment. But ultimately, it's your decision. If they decided not to sign up to the 106, we won't have issued the decision notice, so we could obviously bring it back to committee in that instance anyway.
Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you, Chair. I was actually going to ask for this to be deferred myself because the public consultation is still ongoing and isn't finished till the 1st of October. And I think I would like to be assured that the residents' views would be heard by this committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Constable.
Yeah, can I just confirm that the discussion to defer it includes whether we're paying the parks and the sports development funds? Because obviously that is quite pertinent in terms of viability and the discussion of a second viability condition. Thank you, Chair.
So I don't particularly want to go into the detail of the application because we would cover that in the presentation, and ultimately committee will either have to hear that and decide on that today or at a later point. As the report makes clear, the district value has been instructed in this case, and the output is that it's not viable. But what we want to do in the Section 106 is insert effectively like a clause which requires an updated viability assessment, because the district valuer has effectively come back and said that the viability is heavily influenced by COVID in this case, so that could significantly change things. So ultimately, what we're saying to the committee is that it isn't viable to provide those contributions, but it might be at a future point. But in terms of, obviously at this point, you're just considering whether to defer or consider those points at a later committee.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ash. Again, I don't really want to get into the nuts and bolts of this if we are going to defer, and I think we need to make that decision before we go any further. So with that in mind, unless I have any other councillors that wish to speak, I'd like to sort of propose then a deferment. So all those in favour of a deferment till the next council meeting? Yeah, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, and then if we can move on to item number 3, please, on the agenda. So sorry, Mr. Goggins, my apologies that you've had almost a wasted journey in some ways. We weren't sure, obviously, it's something we've got to put to the vote, so I do apologise that you've turned up here in good faith tonight to speak to the councillors. I would obviously like to invite you back to speak at the next meeting, and obviously we'll get officers to be in touch with the details of that.
That's fine, thank you, Chair. Again, if it's been deferred in a way that makes sense for a council discussion from the residents' perspective, to be held at that point rather than time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for your understanding, sir. Okay, so agenda item 3.
Item 3 is for a proposed 2-storey side extension to create additional commercial floor space, forming a shop and a kitchen, including retention of existing unit and 5 new apartments with parking and access. The application site address is a north-facing pub called the Bull Pub, located at Bull Street, Nuneaton, CV11 4JX. The slide shows the location plan, the existing block plan, and the existing front, side and rear elevations. Licensing, refuse, policy, environmental health and highways were consulted as part of the application, with no objections subject to conditions received from highways, refuse, planning policy and environmental health, and no response received from licensing. There have been 7 objections from 5 different addresses, which resulted in the application being called for committee. The objections included concerns regarding the potential loss of light, loss of privacy, the height of the development and the impact on 31A and 31B, Bull Street, and concerns regarding access to guttering and abuse of parking provision potentially for residents at 31A, 31B, 32A and 32B, Bull Street. A letter of support was also provided by One Hall End Place that the project would bring life to Nuneaton and the surrounding community. The residents were particularly enthusiastic about the proposal. In terms of residential amenity, the development is located 15 metres away from 9 Hall End Place and 12 metres away from the rear windows of 2 Hall End Place, with the development facing directly onto the amenity space of this dwelling. This means that the development does not impact the residential amenity of this property. The proposed development faces onto the wall of flats 31A and 32B Bull Street, where there are no habitable room windows. Therefore, the development does not impact the residential amenity of these flats. The agent submitted amended plans to switch the Juliet balcony from bedroom 2 in flat 2 onto the corridor side, which further ensures the privacy of the occupants, which ensures residential amenity to the occupants of this flat. These amendments do not have a detrimental impact on the existing residential amenity as assessed. The agent submitted further amended plans on the 8th of September showing a lean-to which extends along the west of the site. I can confirm that the lean-to does not negatively impact residential amenity. The proposed development includes use of materials to match their existing building closely. Therefore, although it is visible on the street scene, it will not negatively impact visual amenity. The principle of use is supported by planning policy, and environmental health have assessed the impact of the proposal on odour and noise, and have requested a condition for details of glazing and ventilation and restricted hours for deliveries. Highways have no objections subject to conditions. The client has already agreed to all of these conditions. The development is compliant with policy and the applicant has agreed to the conditions as explained in writing via email to MBBC as set out in the schedule. It is recommended that the proposal be approved.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Do I have someone to propose the recommendation? Okay, thank you, Councillor Smith. A seconder, Councillor Evans, thank you. Okay, we can now move to the debate. Do I have any speakers? Councillor Conticore.
Thank you, Chair. Did the officer say there was a lean-to that was added very recently to the design, and has people been consulted on the change plans, if so?
Yeah, the lean-to was included in amended plans and they occupy a part of the car park area rather than the residential flats. So it wasn't deemed as necessary to consult the public on that lean-to. And highways were also consulted. They provided a statement saying it was acceptable.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Conticore. Does that answer your question? Okay. Any other speakers on this matter? No, okay, in that case, I will move to the vote. Oh, sorry, my apologies, Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you, Chair. It is actually on the lean-to. Do we know what the lean-to is being used for?
So the lean-to, I don't have the answer to that right now. If you give me a moment, I can check through the document to see if they've specified. Unfortunately, I don't have the information in the report, but a statement was provided to me via email specifying that the lean-to was for additional storage for cars, particularly larger cars. I think it's to do with the landlords or the people that own the property, but I don't have that in writing in the report.
Okay, Councillor Shepherd.
I'm just a little concerned that the lean-to might be used for outside people gathering in terms of a smoking shelter or something like that. And we have got an old people's residential complex that actually is just on the edge of that top picture. So I've got a little concern about noise. So I think if we could put a condition in there around, you know, nobody outside after, I think it's 10 o'clock we usually put in. Would that be acceptable, Chair?
Yeah, so actually just inform me that would be acceptable. We don't need to sort of take it to licensing or anybody else, so that's what we can decide on. So I would just like to ask then, is there any first or any other speakers on this matter? If not, then can we just consider what Councillor Shepherd has said? Sorry, Councillor Evans.
Sorry, can I seek clarification on that? So if we're having a condition to... An additional condition to do what in the car park, sorry?
Okay, so with the lean-to, the idea is that it doesn't get used as a smoking shelter, which then generate extra noise, which might then impact on the neighbours.
So if these people were to submit an application to our licensing department to have some sort of premises license, if the licensing department come to a decision that you can't have anyone congregating outside in the car park after the hours of 9 o'clock in the evening, would their decision supersede that of this committee's? Or...
Okay, Councillor, so when licensing get applications, we're consulted on those as well, so we can run a check as part of that. I think in this instance, we'd probably word the condition to restrict the use of that lean-to in line with what's been supplied to Rena. If you're happy to delegate the word into us, I think we'd keep it fairly tight, because obviously we need to be able to enforce that condition. But yeah, certainly if licensing have an application, they consult us as part of that process, so we'd pick it up through that consultation.
Okay, Councillor, that's answer your question satisfactorily, thank you. Okay, so if I have no other speakers, then can we then move to look at that condition? So can I ask those in favour of granting the planning department permission to actually go ahead with inserting that condition that the lean-to can only be used for specific purposes? All those in favour? Yeah, so that's unanimous. Okay, can we now vote on the actual recommendation? The recommendation then is to grant planning permission. All those in favour? Okay, nobody against and no abstentions. That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, that moves us on then to item number 4. So while we're waiting, do we have Mr. Thompson here? Yeah, okay, brilliant, thank you. Just want to make sure you were by a microphone.
The application for item 4 is for the erection of 2 pairs of semi-detached houses and 1 two-storey house following the previous approval of 035220 at site 124A008, land and garages to the rear of 2 to 12 Shoalfield Road, Kerrisley, Coventry. The site is a redundant garage court surrounded by residential housing. There are still some parts of the former garages on the site. However, these are in a poor state and have clearly not been used for some time. The site is currently gated at the bottom of the access. The slide shows the location plan, layout plan and proposed houses. Highways and Environmental Health had no objection to the proposal subject to conditions, and no response was received from Severn Trent and MBBC Refuse. The application has been brought to committee because there have been 3 objections from 3 addresses and 10 objections with no address details provided. The concerns included loss of privacy and loss of light and parking issues, with further details of objections in the agenda provided. The application has been brought to committee because there have been 3 objections from... In terms of the principle of development, the site is a disused garage site with approximately 13 redundant garages. Therefore, in line with the MPPF, the application would be an effective use of land by reusing land that has previously been developed, if it is not of high environmental value. In terms of residential amenity, it is considered that there would be no unacceptable impact on the residential amenity of the existing occupiers of the surrounding dwellings, and this is in accordance with the Design Guide Supplementary Planning Document. Due to the modern design of the dwellings with traditional materials, it is considered that the scheme would not have a detrimental impact on visual amenity and is in line with the MPPF, whereby it is recommended in policy that permission be refused for development of poor design that fails to take opportunities available for improving the character and quality of an area and the way it functions. In terms of highways, the Highways Authority have no objection to the proposal subject to conditions. The proposal is compliant with policy, and it is recommended to the committee that the application be approved subject to conditions printed in the agenda.
Okay, thank you very much. I have one speaker on this item, which is Mr. Thompson. So, Mr. Thompson, you have 3 minutes when you are ready. Thank you.
That's better, thank you. Right. Yeah, obviously the lady from the planning department has sort of filled in the most of the salient details. Just want to reiterate really that this is a resubmission with fairly minor changes of something that was approved in 2017, and the reason this is happening is that the current applicant, who is not the same as the previous applicant, was in the process of buying the site last year as the previous permission was running out of time, and wasn't quite able to get the pre-commencement conditions discharged so they could start, otherwise they'd have started. In terms of the design, there are the semi-detached houses are identical to the 2017 application. What is Unit 5 is a little different in that was previously a coach house type style development with garages beneath it, but the new applicant preferred a more normal house, and also the parking is substantially the same as it was, but there's been some minor amendments in terms of having level curbs to ease getting out of it based on some work done by Fieldgate consultants on the traffic movement on the site. Aside from that, as I say, it's pretty much as it was. Sorry, what else did I want to say? All right. Yeah. So just want to conclude by saying that it's a much better. It almost can't help but be better than what's there at the moment. So I'm not suggesting that therefore you should approve anything that's put to you, because even though it would make my job easier, but I think in this case the client, we as the agent and the applicant have done a lot of work to make sure that this is a good development, and therefore I hope you will approve it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thompson. If you just turn off your microphone, thank you. So the recommendation in front of us then is to grant planning permission subject to the conditions printed in your agendas. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Smith, thank you. Councillor Evans, seconding. Thank you very much. Okay, so if we can then move to the debate, do I have any speakers on this item? Councillor Shepherd.
I noticed there was no comment from the refuse service, but the condition at 13 that a bin area should be provided on the private access road off the public highway in accordance with the drawing number. Can you just point out where that is on that drawing, please? Yes. Oh, sorry.
Councillor Shepherd, I've just had it confirmed that if you just see where the mouse is at the moment on the screen, those boxes are the the bin storage. That will be the storage point, and then the access point is here. So here's the storage point, bin storage point, and here's the access on this map here. Is that okay? Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Shepherd, do you have any further comments or points you wish to make? No. Councillor Brown, sorry, Councillor Condico, I believe he wanted to come in next, and then Councillor Brown, Councillor Smith.
Thank you very much. It was mentioned the coach house had changed, was going to be number 5, and on our elevating drawings, it looks quite sort of dark, and it might just be the printing, but on page 64, the side elevations are quite large and quite oppressive on the printing, so I didn't know what the sort of brickwork and what the visual aspect would be. And I don't know if we've agreed that with the applicant, but it might be certainly it could make a difference to someone looking at a ginormous wall with just a tiny window. That such a large amount of brick, I think it does need to be relatively light and in keeping.
Are you requesting that we apply a condition? Because you feel that the materials are slightly dark.
Yes, Chair, I'm just saying the materials on those walls should be agreed with the planning officers to make sure they're not too dark and oppressive.
Okay, so they're not so dark, and they're more in keeping with the general nature.
Yeah, so it doesn't say what they are, whether they're red brick or light brick.
So that's where you'd like, is that a point of clarification rather than a condition? Okay.
Okay, so Councillor, I can confirm that on the schedule of conditions, number 3 details that no development shall commence until full details and samples of materials proposed to be used on the external parts of the buildings have been submitted and approved in writing by the council. So that is in condition 3. Okay?
Yeah, so thank you very much. I think that covers that point, Councillor. There's no need for a separate condition because it's already embodied in condition number 3. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm familiar with this site as being one of the ward councillors, and I will confirm that the proposed development will be a huge improvement on the derelict garages that are there currently. I mean, the site is on a hill, Kersley is on a hillside, so they can't help but be changes in elevation. The current buildings there on site are on several different elevations already because of the hillside nature of the site. There are traffic issues in Scaffield Road, but they're not the result, and I can't see it they'll be made worse by this development which has got parking contained within it. The parking issues that are on the road are mainly due to irresponsible use of parking by people running a business from home elsewhere on the street. So overall, I'm broadly supportive of this because it will bring about a provision of accommodation for people that is needed, and it will be using what's effectively a derelict site currently. Therefore, I will be in favour of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Much on the same lines. Most of what I was going to say has already been covered. We've got many of these derelict garage sites across the borough. I'm very keen they get turned into this type of housing, which we desperately need. The windfall sites are very welcome, and we've already approved in 2017 a very similar application. So I see no reason to do anything other than approve it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Do I have any other speakers? So the motion in front of us then is to recommend planning permission subject to the conditions as printed. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Okay, so that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, we're just having a quick pause just to change our officers over and just to clean down so that we're COVID compliant. Okay, so moving on to the next item, which is item number 5. Handing back over to Rebecca again.
Thank you. So item number 5 is a full application for the erection of one detached dwelling at 140 Woodlands Road in Bedworth. There have been 8 objections to this proposal, with concerns raised in regards to highway safety, flooding, impact on light, privacy and parking. The application was also called in by Councillor Evans. The key issues to consider within this application are the principle of residential development, the impacts on residential and visual amenity, and the impact on highway safety and planning obligations. The parcel of land is located within a residential area within the defined settlement boundary. The plot is regular shaped and relatively flat, with mostly rubble and some sparse grass areas. The parks team were consulted with, however, due to the lack of on-site vegetation, they advised that an ecological check may be over the top given the urban nature of the site. Concerns were raised by neighbours in regards to flooding, however the site is within flood zone 1 with low risks from both river and surface water flooding. As the application is minor, the Warwickshire Surface Water Flood Risk team were not consulted with. The site is also within the low-risk coal zone, and as the plot is not within any designated housing development site, it would be classed as a windfall development. Generally, the principle of residential development is considered to be acceptable, seeing it as it is a predominantly residential area within the defined settlement boundary. 138 Woodlands Road is the neighbouring property to the south of the site. The proposal wouldn't infringe a 45-degree line from the centre of 138's front windows, and their conservatory to the rear cannot be protected as it is not original. To the side, number 138 features one side-facing window, and the original plans for this property show that this window serves a lounge. However, the original plans for the property also show that this lounge would have originally been served by 2 large rear-facing openings. The property has since been extended to the rear so that these windows are no longer sources of light to this room. However, the SDC states that where a room has or had more than one opening, only the primary window can be protected. The primary window will usually be windows which overlook amenity areas. Therefore, in this instance, the side-facing window would be considered as a secondary opening, and therefore it cannot be considered. The proposal would have little impact on 138's rear garden, as the properties are to be offset, and there is little risk of overlooking, as all side-facing windows are to be obscure glazed. 150 Woodlands Road features a side-facing window and door. However, the original plans for this property show them as serving a hallway and a utility. As these are not classed as habitable rooms, they cannot be protected. The distance standards are met in relation to this property, and there should be little risk of overlooking as the side-facing windows are shown to be obscure glazed. The distance standards are also met in relation to the properties to the rear on Missing Oak Close and Woodlands Road Farm to the front, and it is considered that there would be little impact to light, amenity and privacy. The design, scale and height of the property is in keeping with its surroundings, and the proposed external materials can be seen on other properties within the area. Therefore, it is considered that they are acceptable and in keeping. Samples of the proposed materials will be requested via a condition to ensure that they are suitable. The principal elevation of the proposed property is to be approximately in line with the front of 150 Woodlands Road, and there is no clear linear pattern of development along this part of Woodlands Road. Therefore, the plotting of the property is considered to be acceptable, and it would not appear incongruous within the street scene. Whilst the new parking SPD has not fully been adopted yet and hence carries little weight, the new SPD suggests that the 2 spaces for a 3-bed property. Highways have no objection to the application subject to conditions, and the scheme would feature 2 parking spaces. In regards to the size of the access for emergency and waste vehicles, Warwickshire Fire and Rescue have no objection. The new dwelling would feature a bin store and a collection point, and therefore refuse have no objection. No planning obligations are required due to the small scale of development, and generally it is considered that the scheme would make good use of brownfield land within the settlement boundary. The scheme is compliant with the Sustainable Design and Construction SPD in regards to sustainable and visual amenity, and the scheme would provide an acceptable level of amenity for future owners and occupiers, in that it provides a garden space and roughly meets the internal space standards. Therefore, the recommendation is one of approval subject to the conditions printed within the agenda and addendum. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. So we have a recommendation to grant planning permission, subject to conditions. Do I have somebody who'd like to propose this to enable debate? Thank you, Councillor Smith. Do I have a seconder? Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Rudkin. Okay, so I'd like to open the floor then to any comments. Councillor Condacor.
Thank you, Chair. Can you take it back to the car parking there and how it lines up with the other house in the street? Because it looked like it was a long way forward. I can't really quite see which bit of the house on that. Is it a lot forward than 150 and 139?
Yeah, so 138 is here, and that's a semi-detached house, so obviously the front of this house is here as well. The front of this property would be here, but as you can see, the front of 150 is here, which is more or less in line. You can't really see it too clear on that plan. Oh no, sorry, I thought there was another plan on there. There's also the Working Men's Club, which is further along to the south down here, which is also stepped forward, which is why I said that there was no clear linear line of development on this part of the street, seen as it's similarly in line with this property here.
Okay, Councillor Condacor, are you happy with that? Have you got any further questions you wish to ask?
It does look a long way forward in that corner. I don't know if there's an idea of distance, how far forward it is compared, because 150 is a long way to the side, so although it's forward, it doesn't really impinge on 138, whereas this really juts out, so I wasn't quite sure if it's a few metres or if it's 5 or 6 metres.
So is that a question in regards to how set forward it is from this property here? The plan that I've got here isn't to scale, but in regards to whether it being incongruous or not, they are still relatively set back from the footpath, which is why I've recommended that it is acceptable in that location, as well, seeing as it's kind of, I think the distance between here and here is about 0.5 metre, so it's similarly more or less in line, especially when the Working Men's Club is also further set forward than this line.
Do I have any questions? Councillor Hamsley.
Yes, hello, Chair. This seems to be going on for years because it appears to have been refused planning 2009 twice. Are planning convinced now that whatever the reasons for refusal of the planning in 2009, that the builder has redesigned or done whatever the reasons were for the refusal twice in 2009, and also being in a, okay, to say zone 1 floodplain area. I mean, are we happy that we're happy we're letting this building carry on, even though it may be in a floodplain area? Thank you.
So those first 2 applications were both for semi-detached houses, so it was for 2 houses on that one plot, and that was refused because it was felt that was just too intensive for that site, and it was a bit kind of cramped in. Obviously now this is just for 1 property, and we do have the minimum internal space standards. It is a tiny bit short of that, but policy said that, seeing as that would impact future occupiers, it is acceptable, seeing as it was just a couple of square metres short. The other reasons for refusal on the previous applications were on highways grounds, but highways don't have any objection to this scheme. So I'm happy that they have overcome those issues from those last applications. In regards to the flood risk, I don't think I said it was in a flood plain, it was just flood zone 1. So each area is obviously graded between 1, 2, 3, and just zone 1's the lowest risk on there.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hamza, have you got any further questions yet?
Yes, so are highways still happy that vehicles are going to be driving on, maybe reversing onto a main? I do know the road, and okay, so it's a flood zone 1, but lowest risk, but still a risk.
Yeah, so I went on a site meeting with highways, and they basically said that they did initially object because they didn't want cars reversing off going onto Woodlands Road, because obviously there is the bend round the corner. But I don't know if you can see where my mouse is. Obviously they've got the road coming down here, and they removed their objection because cars would be able to reverse off and then drive out in forward gear. So if you kind of drove in, you'd be able to reverse here and then pull out. And in regards to flooding, we can only consult with the Environment Agency if it's over a flood zone 2 or above, and we can't consult with the surface water flooding team just because it's a minor application. But zone 1 is the lowest risk.
So on that basis then, if the applicant has appeased local authority, planning, etc. with their past issues, I really can't see any reason for not passing this through. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Brown, you wish to come in.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just want to be clear from looking at the plans here. Are we saying that the access to this property will be using the existing access that is Missing Oak Close, and they'll be travelling to and from the road, Woodlands Road, down the existing access, and they will not be accessing from directly in front of the property? I just need to clarify that. And the other thing is, can you just give a bit more clarity about why Warwickshire County Council Highways did a volte-face and changed their minds over their objection? Thanks.
Yep, so there is a fence here at the minute, which will be moved back. I don't know if you can read that on there. It says that the existing fence will just be moved back to this point here. So the vehicle access will be through Missing Oak Close here. You are right in that. In regards to the highways objection, their initial point, it was before they did a site visit, and they assumed that it would be off Missing Oak Close, and they weren't happy with cars reversing off there. But after a site visit and measuring up, they were happy that a car could reverse onto Missing Oak Close and entering forward. There was also some concerns in regards to kind of bin storage and collection as well, which was addressed within the scheme. So they've got within the highways objection, but they've got a storage point here, and then they're planning on bringing it forward here just on bin days. So that's why they've removed their objection.
Thank you very much. I just want to make sure I understood how the access to and from this site would be affected, because it is quite a tight site and it's very narrow frontage there, as we could see in the photograph, and clearly we've got a number of other properties at the back which are using the same access. I just want to make sure that we weren't going to be in a position where we've got somebody coming down Missing Oak Close at the same time somebody's trying to access from the front of the property. But thank you for the clarification.
Okay, Councillor Walsh.
You mentioned at the front of the property, current property, a fence is being moved. Now, looking at the plan, it's difficult to see. The blank area, obviously, on the side of Woodlands Road, is that going to be an open void area? The non-shaded area?
Yep, so I think that was after the site meeting with highways. the applicant assumed that there is a fence there at the minute, and this is kind of a verge grassed area, and next door I've got a fence line kind of similar where the existing fence was, and the owner of this plot thought that where their boundary started was in line with next door, but that's why they're moving it back, because Highways confirmed when they're on site that no, that is a verge, you need to bring your fence back. So that's why they've put that on there, but that is effectively a grass verge area.
So that's grass verge. Who is it owned by?
So it would be Highways, Warwickshire County Council Highways. I'll just add as well that with the access road here, it is actually widening compared with what's already there on site, just to confirm what you said before.
Lastly, given the fact that Highways have said, obviously regarding the fact that the cars can reverse into the parking space so they can physically drive out, what control have we got over that? Because you know, you can say that to a customer or say it to the applicant, but in long term, how are we going to ensure that that in actual fact is being carried out and they are not reversing back out onto Woodlands Road?
I mean, we don't have any set control over that, and obviously that's not something that we could condition as to how someone pulls onto their drive. But it's just that the applicants provided an acceptable way that they could safely reverse onto a private road before then going onto the busier road on Woodlands Road. But yes, there's no way that we could, confirm that they would do that.
Do I have any other speakers who'd like to come in on this debate? No? Okay, so in that case, can we move to the vote, please? So the recommendation is to grant planning permission subject to conditions as printed. Okay, all those in favour? Okay, so that's Councillor Brown, was your hand up? Sorry. Yes, that's you. Councillor, all those against? One. And any abstentions? Okay, one. Okay, so that is carried. Thank you. Can we get Councillor Evans back in? Thank you. Oh, there he is. Yeah. Okay, we're now going to move on to item number 6. And again, on this item, we've had a recommendation to defer, so I'm going to pass over to Ash to explain that deferral.
Yeah, councillors, so with respect to this item, at the time of preparing the agenda and publishing the agenda pack, we felt we were in a position to make the recommendation that's in front of you. However, since that time, we've received some information from an objector's solicitor, which has, in my opinion, created some doubt in terms of our recommendation to the committee, specifically regarding outstanding matters on highways. And I would like to have the ability and time to give that proper consideration to be confident in the recommendation that we've put into committee. Therefore, on that basis, I'd like to recommend that we defer this item to the next committee.
Okay, thank you very much, Ash. So with that in mind, obviously we need to decide then whether we carry on or whether, as Ash has recommended, we defer. So I will sort of open this up for discussion first of all. So are there anyone who wishes to speak on that deferral first of all? No? Okay, so in that case, can we just vote on the deferral then? So all those in favour of a deferral? Okay, no one, I think that's unanimous. I know we do have a speaker on this, so Ms Hart, I'd like to apologise that you've come in here tonight and we've been unable to discuss this matter. However, it will be coming up again in front of us, but obviously we don't want to run the same item twice, so you know, we will defer, and obviously the council officer will be in touch to let you know, to invite you back to speak at full council then. So I do apologise, you've had a slightly wasted journey. Thank you for being so understanding. Okay, that brings us on to the last item on the agenda tonight, agenda item number 7, the Waterbridge Garden. So I shall hand over once again.
Item 7. The application seeks approval for cutback to previous pollard point, crown reduction by 30% and removal of ivy and trim back overhang of trees T1 and T2 of Tree Protection Order 07/97. The Tree Protection Order protects 4 trees at the end of the street of Watersbridge Gardens in the rear gardens of numbers 43 and 45 Watersbridge Gardens. T1 and T2 are in the rear garden of number 43 and are commonly known as Weeping Willows, and T3 and T4, which are in the rear garden of number 45, are commonly known as Hawthorn. The application is being called to committee because there has been one letter of objection from one address detailing their concerns regarding the branch fall into their property and impact on sunlight provision to their property. The objector is concerned that the proposed works do not go far enough and believes that a reduction greater than 30% is necessary, as he believes from the previous works 5 to 7 years ago, the trees have now regrown by more than 75%. When assessing proposed works to a tree covered by a TPO, we must consider the tree's visibility to the public, its condition, function in the landscape, age and remaining life expectancy, and ultimately its importance and contribution to the local environment. The trees are in the site of land that is visible from the street of the front of the address and from the larger highway, Watersbridge Gardens, and they can be seen from the canal which flows to the rear of the applicant's property. This means the trees provide significant visual amenity to the area. The Canals and Rivers Trust were consulted as the property does border the Coventry Canal, who had no objections to the application if the canal will not be damaged and that care was taken that branches did not fall into the canal. After consultation with the MBBC tree officer, the original proposal was not considered acceptable. In conclusion, after negotiation between the tree officer and applicant by our officer in the planning department, it was agreed with the applicant that although we refused the original description of works to the trees due to insufficient arboricultural evidence, some works are to be recommended for approval, including the cutback to previous pollard points of trees T1 and T2 of TPO 07/97 and removal of ivy. This work is to continue every 3 to 5 years for ongoing maintenance. This has resulted in a split decision to which the applicant has agreed.
Okay, thank you. We've just heard the recommendation there. Do I have a proposer for that recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Smith and Councillor Shepherd to second that. Okay, so if there are any speakers on this item? No? Okay, so we'll go straight to the vote in that case. All those in favour of the recommendation? Yeah, so that's carried unanimously. Sorry, Councillor Walsh, was your hand up? Yes. Sorry, yeah, sorry. Just want to make sure. Yes, that is unanimous. Okay, so that concludes our business this evening. I'd like to thank our officers and councillors for attending, particularly our 2 substitutes tonight, for giving up their time. Thank you very much. I now bring this meeting to a close. Thank you.